Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. The month of August means our gardens and landscapes are reaching their summer peak. So today we're calling on our experts to provide some timely tips on garden-related topics and highlight some problems that might be cropping up. Joining me from the University of Vermont are Leonard Perry and Ann Hazelreed. Great to see you both again.
Great to be here, Judy.
Now, Leonard, as usual, you've brought some gorgeous flowers to get us started.
I think these are gorgeous. This is one of the new Coreopsis with the unfortunate common name of tick seed.
Oh, boy.
It has nothing to do with ticks. It's just that the seeds are very small, kind of looks like ticks. But Coreopsis is one of the new popular perennials. It is perennial in zone 5. That means it goes down to about -20. That's the warmer parts of our region. Colder parts, you have to be careful of some of these. This is one of a new series. There are a couple series. One, the Big Bang series, they're a bit taller. This is in the Little Bang series. It's called Daybreak, they start blooming about the middle of summer, go right through most of summer. So it's a great plant for some color. Again, if you have a little warmer area. There's one very similar that has been very hardy for me in zone 4, and that's Route 66. So look for some of these Coreopsis, and maybe in a protected place, even in a colder area, you might get it to overwinter. But they're a great flower for a lot of color right through the summer. Yeah, full sun is what they like.
Okay. So you also have a viewer question and a photo about peonies?
I do. Got this picture from Jane in Middlebury of one of her peony arrangements. She loves to arrange peonies, so I thought that would be great to show, even though peonies are kind of past. And that's one of the questions I get is, what do you do with peonies? Is there anything you need to do now? Well, once those flowers finish on the plants, you can cut them off. They don't look very good. You really don't need to do too much. Peonies will last for years. If you do need to divide them, if they're getting too big or you want to move them, fall is the best time for that.
Yeah, I've heard they don't like to be moved.
Yeah, they don't like to be moved too much, but they do fine if you dig them up. Just make sure when you divide them, you have several of those big buds, and don't plant them too deep. Don't mulch them deep in the fall. Anything just below the surface is what peonies like. More than about 2 inches, they may not bloom. So if your peonies didn't look like this in your garden, didn't bloom, and you're wondering why, they might be mulched too deep, too much compost around them.
Well, another viewer asked for your help in identifying a plant.
Right, Justine in Dorset wrote in and sent a picture of this plant, which is goutweed. Goutweed is one that you see the fern down below, but up top those several parted leaves with the white flowers. Once you have it, you kind of have it. You can dig it out.
Nothing kills it.
So it sounds like you're speaking from experience too. I've had some for over 20 years, and
it's a great ground cover.
Yeah, it's a good ground cover if you have an area that it can just stay in. There's a variegated form too, which looks pretty nice. Some people don't know, and they plant it, and those little roots, once you have it and you try to dig it out, you leave a little piece of roots and they will start growing again.
It'll be in your lawn, it'll be everywhere.
Exactly. So goutweed is one that don't put unless you have a area where it can stay.
Like an island.
Yeah, exactly, with concrete or pavement around it.
Now, Ann heads the UVM Plant Diagnostic Clinic, and what kinds of questions have you been getting?
Well, I've gotten a lot of calls this past week and samples. People are complaining about their crab apples defoliating, dropping leaves at this time of year. And what's happening is, we had such a wet spring that the fungus diseases went crazy. So it's basically apple scab is what's causing this leaf drop. And I've got a picture of the leaf spots. But people get really concerned when they see leaves dropping this time of year. So things look thin. So if you look at the leaves, there are those spots. And then it can also, if the fruit is infected, it can make little tiny fruit. That's the next slide, with just sort of cracks and this corky appearance. So at this point, it's too late there. There's the leaf spot, sort of olive brown. It's kind of too late to do anything about it at this point, but they could rake up and destroy the leaves this fall. Yeah, and there's that crummy looking little fruit.
Oh, yeah.
Rake that up, destroy it, and then this winter prune out that tree, thin it out so there's good air and light circulation. So this is another picture I got. I get a lot of pictures in the Plant Diagnostic Clinic. A home gardener sent this, and she said, "What is going on with my mountain ash tree?" And I said, "Wow, it looks like somebody shot a BB at it.
Yeah.
But I said, can you send me some more pictures? And she did. She sent me another set of pictures of an older tree with the same injury. And once I saw these older pictures, which is the next slide, it was really obvious. It's yellow-bellied sapsucker injury. And these are migratory birds. They come through in the spring and they drill these holes that are in lines on, they like birches, maples, and hemlocks, I guess. And it looks like a woodpecker to me. It's got sort of a yellow belly too, but yeah, they can cause a lot of damage. And they kind of like to go back to the same trees every year. So one thing you can do is you can wrap burlap around that tree to sort of discourage them, or hang shiny objects like pie pans to scare them away.
Now, will that be, that first slide that we saw, is that going to kill the tree?
No, it probably won't. You know, once the circles go all the way around the tree, it can definitely kill the tree. But just on one side, the tree will probably heal over. But she doesn't want it to happen every year, that's for sure.
Right, so discourage the
Yes,
pest. Okay.
right.
So this is vacation time for a lot of people, and northern New England is a great place to go.
That's right, Judy. A lot of people go over to Maine and Seacoast, a great place to go in the summer in August. And so I brought a few pictures of some places people might keep in mind if they happen to be in the area or are looking for places. Portsmouth, New Hampshire is great, and there's a park there, Prescott Park. It's actually an All-America Selections flower garden. You can see all these plants labeled right down on the harbor and the river there. The town's just to the left. There's Starberry Bank behind, but that's a great place to see that whole area down there. And then going up to Maine, up around the Booth Bay area, is the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens. It's just an incredible gardens. You definitely need to see that if you like gardens at all and are up in that area. This was rated by on TripAdvisor the top garden in the country for 2 years running. I mean, it is just very popular. They're really expanding. They're building a new visitor center. You can see the masses of planting, the cone flowers here, and some of the, you know, mixture of grasses and the Russian sage and just all kinds of things they do in some of the beds. They have some other areas. They have sunken area. They have a woodland area. Just a lot going on there, and things, again, very well labeled. This is an area you walk down through, sunken area, water feature, a lot of ferns. You see a lot of different ferns in this garden, Coastal Maine Botanic Garden. And then this is the children's garden. It's one of the top ones I've seen. It's so much even for adults to see here. A lot of unusual plants, things labeled, but stuff for kids. You see green roofs on their little children's sheds there. So just a lot of fun things. And again, it's on the way to Booth Bay, just a lovely area up in that area. But there's other gardens in Maine too, but those are just some of the top ones if you're over that way.
Beautiful. Now, and there are a couple of other issues that you're seeing this time of year as well?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of calls from home gardeners about their cucumber squash plants. There's a lot of powdery mildew out there. That's a fungus disease. I've got a picture of that. You see this white powdery coating on the upper surface of the leaves. It looks bad. This is a disease that likes high humidity. So it's probably best to control this just when you first see it starting. You know, it gets a little harder to control. But there are some good organic fungicides you can use. So powdery mildew is one. I have it in my garden. I just sort of ignore it because I feel like maybe it slows down my zucchini a little bit. So I think it's a good thing. The other thing we're seeing is that people's cucumbers are suddenly wilting.
Oh boy.
And that's a big problem. And usually it's a bacterial disease called bacterial wilt. And it's vectored by the cucumber beetle, the striped cucumber beetle, early in the spring. So really, when you're trying to manage this disease, you're trying to control that cucumber beetle. And so people can use row covers early in the spring. Usually it's kind of hit or miss. You don't lose all your plants. So that's a problem. Also, if they're seeing wilting, they should also check lower in the plant for another pest called the squash vine borer. That'll cause big boring holes at the crown. The other problem on cucurbits right now are these squash bugs, and I have a picture of the egg masses. You can look on the undersides of your squash, and the pest lays the eggs right in the axil of a leaf vein. So if you see those, just squish them. That's the easiest way to control them right there. But they hatch into these kind of creepy looking bugs. Yeah, true bugs actually. They sort of look like spidery things to me, and they've got these piercing, sucking mouth parts, and they can puncture leaves and feed on leaves and cause some wilting of individual leaves.
My goodness.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy. We have time for a couple more pictures and plant ID questions.
Yeah, well, our producer Will brought in a couple, and I really am excited to talk about this plant because it's one of my favorites. One you see around a lot, the mullein plant, or verbascum. There's different species of this, but this is the common one that people driving along roads may see along the roadsides. Big lower leaves, and then these tall stalks getting 4, 5, 6 feet or more high with the little yellow flowers all up and down a central stalk. Basically, they're biennial. They grow a rosette at the base of these big kind of fuzzy leaves the first year, and then the second year they shoot up the stalk, they go to seed, and then that's it. And so the thing about the biennial is, you know, if you want to control it, you just keep from going to seed, but it really doesn't become invasive or a problem. Those seeds need open areas and preferably disturbed and poor soils to grow, so it won't just kind of get in your garden amongst other plants and start growing. It really needs that open ground, which is great if you have poor soil and kind of open areas. I have a pile of gravel, and they seeded on that, and they just grew and look beautiful. Just gravel, I mean, almost no soil. And so they just love those disturbed sites and almost no care. They like drought. Just a good all-around plant. Now, those have the single spikes. There is one, the Greek mullein. It has like a candelabra, has many spikes coming up down at the King's Garden at Fort Ticonderoga. They have several of those planted against a brick wall. It's just gorgeous. And if you want to see some other species, up at Perennial Pleasures Nursery in East Hardwick, she has quite a few different types of mulleins there. She likes those as well as I do. And in fact, I should mention with Perennial Pleasures up in East Hardwick, she has a phlox fest. The tall garden phlox is in bloom this time of year, and she has one of the best collections in the country. In fact, she has over 150 different of these tall garden phlox, and she has tours every day. I'll be up there on Saturday, August 5th, and usually go up for Saturday and do this tour with her, and we talk about the phlox and all the things with that. Another plant that gets mildew, thinking of, like you mentioned there, but only on those. But there's some things you can do about that. But anyway, encourage people to think about these mulleins that they see along the road. A lot of people think, oh, that's just a weed. That's just
that's what I thought.
You know, wildflower. But no, that's something you can grow in the garden. Very architectural, very statuesque.
Yes.
And I've got a few that they're just, and even one or two of those with the yellow flowers, the candelabra type, just gorgeous this time of the year. Real focal point. So think about something different, you know, for the garden. And again, something really no maintenance.
Wow. And so I should mention too that there's a lot of information on your website, of course.
Yeah, I've got a lot more about all kinds of different perennials and the Perry's Perennial pages, perrysperennials.info. Upcoming tours I'll be putting up. We've got one in September that's full to Canada, but we'll be having one to the Philadelphia Flower Show next March, and soon I'm going to be putting that up. So so we can have some early registration for that, so watch for that, and just a lot of other information, articles and so forth.
Now, Ann, I have another question for you. I have a couple of perennials that have some issues with mold, you know, like the mildew.
Right.
Should I just leave them be? Should I take the bottom leaves off that look kind of bedraggled? And
You could go ahead and take those bottom leaves off. And there's some good organic, did you say it was a perennial or annual? Yeah, perennial. You might want to find one of those good organic fungicides, like there's one that's made up from baking soda.
Oh,
so
wow.
you might want to spray that a few times just to slow that down, because you want it to overwinter well.
Right. I want it to
But
be
if
healthy
you,
going in.
yeah, you don't want to pick off too many leaves.
Okay.
The problem is, usually with those, you have to start when you first see it.
Yeah,
you know, it's not going to
exactly.
make it go away. It'll
Right.
keep more from start.
Right.
Yeah, so the new leaves will be protected from the disease, but those old leaves, you won't cure those. So.
And of course, if people have questions, a good thing to do is to call the Master Gardener helpline.
Yeah, they're every Monday through Thursday, and there's the number, and they're usually 2 people manning the phones at a time, and it's a great, helpful resource. And if they don't know what it is, they can ask for a sample to be sent in, and then we can take a look at it in the lab.
Great.
Yeah.
Also, any other advice for folks this time of year? I mean, it's been pretty wet, but it could dry out pretty quickly.
Yeah, just make sure, you know, those, if it is, and it's deceiving a lot of times, we'll get a little bit of rainy weather, but it's not really a good soak of rain. You think, oh, it's been rainy. Well, the plants aren't, especially the pots, getting that much water. So just make sure, get a little rain gauge if you don't have one, and monitor how much rain we're really getting, and just keep it going if you're going to be a way, make sure somebody's going to water these potted plants so they don't die all your work.
Exactly, and I have flower window boxes.
Yeah.
Should I fertilize them?
Well, what are in those, I guess?
Petunias. And,
Petunias,
you know,
yeah, probably because
they're
those
looking a
are
little
pretty.
leggy.
A lot of the, yeah, if they're kind of leggy, they're getting a little bit yellowish. We got a few annuals like that. A little fertilizer, those are really heavy feeders. Unless you put slow release fertilizer in at the beginning, or really a lot of organic fertilizer, then yeah, probably now they're getting a little hungry.
Okay,
You know, could
I'll do
use a little bit.
that. Thank you both for joining
Yeah.
us. That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.